Assalamualaikum and hi everyone. Welcome to One House Sports channel. My name is Aiman Abdul Rahman and today I'll be talking about the history of football. So, what do you guys know about football? Do you guys know Lionel Messi, Cristiano Ronaldo, Pele, Maradona, or Zinedine Zidane? Basically, football has come from a long journey and it has an interesting story about it. Early history of football. In China, during the 3rd and 2nd century, football was called under the name of Kuju. Kuju was played with a round ball on an area of a square. It later spread to Japan and it was practiced under the ceremonial forms. In ancient Greece, the ball was made by shreds of leather filled with hair. In the ancient Rome, games with balls were not included in the entertainment of the big arenas, but it could occur during the military training. It was the Roman culture that brought football to British Island. However, the British people were influenced by this variety and in which degree they had developed their own variants. The game of football takes its form. During the 12th century in England, football were played on meadows and roads in England. Besides from kicks, the game involved also punches of the ball with the fist. This early form of football was also much more rough and violent than the modern way of playing. It involved plenty of people and took place over large areas in towns. This kind of football games and would cause damage on the town and sometimes death. The game forbidden for several centuries, but it would return to the street of London during the 17th century. However, the game was forbidden again in 1835, but at this stage the game had been established in public schools. It took, however, long time until the features of today's football had been taken into practice. The game would, however, continue to develop for a long time and there was still much flexibility concerning the rules. The sport was at first an entertainment for the British working class. Unprecedented amounts of people, up to 30,000, would see the big matches in the late 19th century. The game would soon expand by British peoples that traveled to other parts of the world, especially in South America and India. Would the interest in football become big? The first football clubs. Football clubs have existed since 15th century, but unorganized and without the official status. Some historians suggest that it was the football club formed in 1824 Edinburgh. Early clubs were often formed by former school students and the first of this kind was formed in Sheffield in 1855. The oldest among professional football clubs is the English club Notts County that was formed in 1862 and still exists until today. Football teams were established in the larger cities and the new railroads could bring them to other cities. In the beginning, football was dominated by public school teams, but later teams consisting by workers would make up the majority. Another change was successfully taking place when some clubs became willing to pay their best player to join their team. This would be the start of a long period of transition, not without friction, in which the game would develop to a professional level. The motivation behind paying players was not only to win more matches. In the 1880s, the interest in the game has moved ahead to a level that tickets were sold to the matches. And finally, in 1885, professional football was legalized and 3 years later, the Football League was established. During the first season, 12 clubs joined the league, but soon more clubs became interested and the competition would consequently expand into more divisions. For a long time, the British would be dominant. After some decades, clubs from Prague, Budapest and Siena will be the primary contenders to the British dominance. As with many things in history, women were for a long time excluded from participating in football. It was not before the late 19th century that women started to play football. A ladies team from Preston was one of the first to compete in an international game against Paris. There was a brief ban after the World War I made by Football Association who deemed women's football to be inappropriate. However, the formation of the English Women's FA saw the ban eventually lifted in 1971. Since the women's football has continued to grow in Britain and abroad, some of the largest football clubs such as Arsenal, Everton and Chelsea all have female teams which compete at home and internationally. a game of passion. Football is a game of passion because in the late 19th century, Goodison Park was built in England in purpose of hosting football games. In 1894, the FA Cup final between Notts County and Bolton Wanderers was attended by 37,000 people. A milestone in the development of football stadium is the construction of Maracana Stadium. In the year of 1950, the imposing stadium in Rio de Janeiro was ready for almost 200,000 people. No other sport has seen stadiums of that capacity built to host its games. There have been two different traditions of fan culture on the arenas, the British and the South American. The British fans adopted the tradition of singing. It was inspired from pub and working songs among other areas. The South Americans, on the other hand, would adopt the carnival style, which included firecrackers and fireworks, and also the modern phenomena of Bengali fires. Fans in other countries have later adopted a mixture of these traditions. The first competition was the FA Cup in 1871. The following year, a match between two national teams was played for the first time. The match that involved England and Scotland ended 0-0 and was followed by 4,000 spectators at Hamilton Crescent. 12 years later, in 1883, the first international tournament took place and included four national teams: England, Ireland, Scotland, and Wales. Football was for a long time a British phenomenon, but it gradually spread to other European countries. The first game that took place outside Europe occurred in Argentina in 1867, but it was foreign British workers who were involved on the tournament. The Federation International de Football Association, FIFA, was founded in 1904, and a foundation act was signed by representatives from France, Belgium, Denmark, the Netherlands, Spain, Sweden, and Switzerland. England and other British countries did not join FIFA from the start because they had no reason to subordinate to an association. Still, they joined in the following year and will not partake the World Cup until 1950. Domestic leagues occurred in many countries. The first was, as already mentioned, the English Football League, which was established in 1888. The leagues would be by time spanned by more divisions, which were based on team performance. In 1908, football for the first time to be included as an official sport in the Olympic Games. Until the first FIFA World Cup was played in 1930, the Olympic Games football tournament would rank as the most prestigious on a national level. The biggest sports in the world. In the late 19th century, only a few national football teams exist. England and Scotland had the first active teams that played games against each other in 1870. Today, there are 211 national associations included in FIFA, the world governing body of the sport. Another proof of the globalization could be seen in the increase of nations participating in the World Cup qualifiers from 32 countries in 1934 to over 200 countries in 2014. The world regions have been divided into 6 confederations. In Africa, CAF, in Asia, AFC, in Europe, UEFA, in North America, CONCACAF, in Oceania, OFC, in South America, CONMEBOL. Today, more than 240 million around the world play football regularly according to FIFA. The game has evolved from the sport of kicking a rudimentary animal hype ball around into the World Cup sport it is today. So that's all from me today. Thank you so much for watching this video, and make sure you guys like and subscribe this video. And that's all from me today. Assalamualaikum and goodbye.
Fueled by them to see the horizon. Turn